Good afternoon, Trump's family. Welcome back to my channel. Have a good day and God bless you. Let's get into the news. Well, not exactly, because we're going after the right this time, or we're going after the fake right, these rhino clowns. In yesterday's video, I asked the question about Volodymyr Zelensky. Who the hell made this guy president? To vertical. In this case, we're talking about Paul Ryan and the rest of these GOP neocon clowns. Who the hell made you the kingmaker of the Republican Party? And someone as unimpressive as Paul Ryan, of all people, pulling off a pathetic stunt like this, trying to emotionally blackmail Republican voters, the Republican voter base, into not supporting Donald Trump as the next nominee headed into the 2024 election. I don't know where these people get off saying and doing this kind of stuff. I don't know where the ego and the entitlement comes from. But unfortunately, it exists. It's a serious issue that needs to be tackled, needs to be called for what it is: sabotage, because this right here is the exact kind of stuff that's allowing Democrats to walk into positions of power unimpeded. Let me show you guys exactly what I mean. Let's talk about the GOP is number one problem outside of all of the voting reforms that we've seen over the last couple of years. Alright folks, so I wake up this morning and here's the headline that I'm greeted with. Fox News board member Paul Ryan says that he will not attend the RNC if the nominee is Donald Trump. Now my first reaction was, you serious? Who gives a crap what Paul Ryan thinks? Friggin' Phineas Flynn from Phineas and Ferb Israel unhappy with a potential GOP nominee? What are we ever going to do? I mean, shiver me timbers. You can't possibly move forward without Paul Ryan's support now, can you? And obviously, in the grand scheme of things, whatever the frick Paul Ryan thinks doesn't really matter all that much. Paul Ryan, even though he's got a young, boyish looking face, is still a fossil and neocon fossil who represents an older Republican Party that frankly no longer exists, that's gone extinct. One little isolated incident with this insignificant clown Paul Ryan isn't really going to change much, but Paul Ryan is a microcosm of the issue. You know, in a previous interview, Paul Ryan said something interesting. This was not the first time Paul Ryan attacks President Trump. In November, Paul Ryan described himself as a never-again Trumper and added, if we stick with Donald Trump, we keep losing elections. But I find the statement to frankly be totally stupid. I view this thinking as completely backwards. The issue is, if you don't stick behind Donald Trump, and yes, you'll continue to lose elections if you keep doing what you've been doing. You and the Adam Kinzinger, Mitt Romney, Liz Cheney, Mitch McConnell, Jeb Bush crew, if the GOP keeps sabotaging its own chances at victory, keeps displaying dysfunction and division, then yeah, the GOP is gonna keep losing, you know, in the middle of an election cycle. You know, it doesn't work. You know, it doesn't help people spending millions of dollars campaigning against their own political party, like the Chinese in the last election, directly endorsing Democrats and even running ads against the Trump faction. Everyone listen to this. In our nation's 246-year history, there has never been an individual who is a greater threat to our republic than Donald Trump. He tried to steal the last election using lies and violence to keep himself in power after the voters had rejected him. He was a coward. A real man wouldn't lie to his supporters. He lost his election, and he lost big. I know it, he knows it, then deep down, I think most Republicans know it. Linda and I are so proud of Liz for standing up for the truth, doing what's right, honoring her oath to the Constitution, when so many in our party are too scared to do so. Liz is fearless. She never backs down from a fight. There is nothing more important she will ever do than lead the effort to make sure Donald Trump is never again or the Oval Office. And she will succeed. I am dead Cheney. I proudly voted for my daughter. I hope you will too. Okay folks, Donald Trump can't win, says the people who are, I guess, endorsing Nikki Haley? Oh, yes, I see the logic. The man who took down the establishment won in an absolute landslide in 2016. A total upset victory. The man who just barely lost in 2020, the actual kingmaker of the Republican Party, the guy who was winning in pretty much every single nomination poll for the RNC nomination, that guy can't win. But Nikki Haley, who's probably pulling at 3% within her own party, is going to take down the entire Democrat machine. You're out of your damn mind. There's really only two options. There's Donald Trump or Ron DeSantis. Donald Trump right now is really the only option, because Ron DeSantis hasn't declared that he's going to run, and already before the primary even begins, we have these neocon fools He's absolute traitors beginning their sabotage movement. Traitor Mike Pence says he's confident that we'll have better choices than my old running mates. Again, like who? You know, it's nice to live in a fairy tale. But in the real world, there is really no better option. There's no real proven winner. There's very little talent to begin with, when it comes to Republican candidates, people who are aiming for that nomination. There's no real good options. Ted Cruz, give me a break. Nikki Haley, give me a break. There's that new Silicon Valley guy. I think his name is Vivek, which of course, that guy is pretty good when it comes to soundbites on Fox News. But for the most part, he hasn't proven himself politically. And he hasn't established a real political brand yet. So I wouldn't really even call that an option. Again, I think he's going to be pulling maybe within the 1 to 5%. And so if Republicans wanted to win right now, the only option really is Donald Trump. And it's not a bad option. I mean, he's one of the greatest presidents in modern history, and the fact that GOP establishment people can't see that, rather, I think a better way to say that is that they don't want to see that because they seem to have some ulterior motive. And that motive to me seems to be losing. I'm comfortable calling it neocon sabotage. Because I legitimately think people like Mitch McConnell, people like Liz Cheney, who are part of that faction, I think they legitimately don't want to win. I think they'd rather see Biden continue in office and give up more of the GOP that they've already lost. They know that the Republican Party of old has become less and less theirs, and clearly that's a problem. Clearly, they're holding a grudge. You know, people like Paul Ryan, who've fallen so deeply out of favor, I think their egos can handle it and they'd rather see the whole thing burn, at least momentarily. In the short term, they'd rather fight the change than embrace it, but of course, ego's only part of it. There's a lot of monetary and power incentive. They just don't want to lose their influence, the legacy neocon influence over the GOP. They can't accept that it's no longer the party of old, and so that's why they say stuff like, if we stick with Trump, we keep losing elections. That's not an observation. That's clearly, Donald Trump is a winner. He's a proven winner. I don't think that's political analysis. I think that's a threat. If you pick Donald Trump, then he won't win because we're going to stop him just like they tried in 2016. I mean, despite all of it, against all odds, Donald Trump managed to beat the GOP establishment and the Democrat establishment, winning the nomination and then winning the election. Clearly, the interest of this faction, of this despicable faction of the GOP, isn't good conservative policies and stopping the Biden administration. It's something else. There's something else entirely here, something sinister. I mean, it's clearly unethical and sinister. If you're supposedly a representative or you're supposedly a politician representing a party, and instead of representing the will of your own voter base, instead of, actually trying to win elections, you're doing whatever the frig this sabotage nonsense is. Because if you really get down to the basic facts, if you look at the polling data, a general election that Trump versus Biden as opposed to general election, polling data, DeSantis versus Biden, these are the only two decent options to go against the Democrat establishment right now. And Donald Trump's numbers are frankly better than Ron DeSantis. We have polls like Quinnipiac and PPP as well, Economist/YouGov, showing a massive Biden victory. But those are garbage polls. We all know that they're usually off by 6 percentage points. If Emerson, ABC News, Reuters and Harvard Harris are showing Donald Trump with commanding leads, much more commanding than the leads that DeSantis is showing versus Biden in that matchup, then clearly Donald Trump can win. The scenario isn't pick Donald Trump and automatically we lose. The real scenario here is, can we get these corrupt deep state GOP, fake GOP rhino goons on board, or is it going to have to be once again man versus machine, Donald Trump against the entire establishment, Donald Trump against all odds, the GOP fighting its own base, battling a hydra with multiple heads rather than a simple Democrat dragon? I don't know, I guess it's the same conclusion. I very rarely use this word, maybe once every couple of months, but I like to use it when I think it actually applies. I absolutely friggin' hate these people. These phony virtue signaling ivory tower condescending rhinos are just the worst. Get with the damn program and stop making winning elections so damn difficult. Help create a strong, coherent conservative platform that voters can rally behind, and rally behind one unified party with one leader instead of causing dysfunction, distrust and division and playing straight into the Democrat establishment's hand. That's my view on these phony virtue signaling never Trump heirs. Yet again, Trump was right. And all of media was wrong. The morally superior, wonderful, highly educated among us who are wrong. And the reason that they were misguided and spreading information that misinformed was because it wasn't politically it wasn't. There wasn't political utility in telling the truth or in venturing towards a narrative that could have absorbed or exonerated Trump. They needed to blame Trump. Trump was at fault always. They needed to blame Trump. They had to blame him. And so when he blamed another country, they said, "How dare you? That's prejudicial. How dare you? There's no evidence." Wall Street Journal, news exclusive. You know, what most likely origin of you know what? It's right there. Then you have The Hill, which is a very bizarre thing. Democrat, the one Democrat, okay. New York Times, most likely caused Energy Department says, now the federal government is saying exactly what people who are marginalized. Exactly what supporters of Trump, exactly what Trump was saying, exactly what was Rand Paul was saying. And we couldn't say we couldn't talk about this. And that was the most frightening thing, one of the most frightening and pathetic and disturbing and sinister and diabolical elements of the past 3 years. The people who were almost always wrong about everything had complete control of the narrative. And they did so to politically. You have individuals within the Democratic Party. And you have the Twitter file showing government officials, Democratic Party, hundreds, major corporations that control speech, over the internet, not allowing Americans to voice their concerns or their thoughts or their ideas of what likely could have taken place. Democrats had zero direct evidence that Trump ever worked with another country. That's all you heard. But God forbid, all the evidence points to a viewpoint and narrative that is contrary to what all the morally superior, highly educated believed. And your voice was silenced. You had no voice. And there were people who lost everything, their income, they lost their ability to work. They were marginalized, and the entire public relations machine went out after them. See nearby and finding the theory as credible. Oh, here, that's 21. But you have now, it's all over now. Trump is not only exonerated. We know now it wasn't simply his lack of leadership. Hey, he downplayed everything. No, Energy Department report. Kindle's ongoing, did they? No. There was no ongoing debate. There were people trying to suppress the truth because the truth makes you vote Trump. The truth exonerates Trump in most cases. U.S. Energy Department said it can't probably came from you know where. Yeah, we knew this years back. We knew this years back. Why didn't we admit this as a nation, as a country? Because it didn't suit the Democratic Party. That's why, and it helps Trump. And so the truth, and you can look here, The Atlantic. This is an article. Trump supporters are getting the story backwards. If their thesis had rights is right, it points to a course opposite what they propose not. It actually, this was May 7, 2021. All you've heard is information that misinformed because it would have helped Trump politically. Okay, here. Then they said, well, you know, it's prejudicial. We can't blame a country because, and this is happening in major cities. You have violence towards certain demographic groups in Democratic-run cities in the West Coast, in the East Coast, in California, in New York. Not Trump's fault. When you have violence towards certain communities within bastions of tolerance, maybe it's the laws, maybe it's the Democrats in charge of those communities who should have paid attention. Not blaming Trump. But here. All you had was all of this. This, oh my God. Trump again uses insensitive terms. Trump, oh my God, it's his fault. He shouldn't go ahead. And then you had, why that theory won't go away. Maybe because it was true. Maybe because it was true. Maybe because it was actually true. And it exonerated Trump. Now you can't blame Trump for everything that took place. And I am quoting everything from Politico to the New York Times, CBS News. Look at what took place at The Atlantic. Look at the concerted effort. Thank you for watching the video.